The Dyatlov Pass Incident, the great adventure on Death Mountain, the inexplicable and mysterious disappearance story of 9 hikers who organized a trip to the mountain, a series of strange occurrences. What happened on that mountain? What was experienced there? In February 1959, when rescue teams reached what is now known as Dyatlov Pass, they had found the lifeless bodies of 5 of the 9 missing hikers. The other 4 hikers were found 2 months after the incident, when the snow melted. Of course, when the teams started working to solve the case, they immediately realized that this was not an ordinary incident. Their tent had been cut open from the inside with a knife, but they had not found any evidence of a fight, disturbance, or attack. A little beyond the tent, the bodies of 2 hikers were found completely naked, and the hikers found further away had fractures in their skulls. One of them had neither eyes nor a tongue. Even stranger, high amounts of radiation were found on the corpses of some hikers. When the teams realized they couldn't make sense of it, they covered up the incident by calling it a natural death. There are still those who claim this was military cover-up, a secret KGB operation, a monster attack, or even an alien attack. So what happened there that day? Why couldn't this incident be solved? Let's look at the story of this interesting incident together. Before examining the incident, let me briefly explain this trip to you. A team of 10 people who set out had planned a 16-day hike in the northern Ural Mountains. Their route was to start from present-day Yekaterinburg, then Sverdlovsk, continue by train to Serov, then by train to Ural, from there by bus to Vizhai, from there by truck to the 41st settlement area, from there to the Lozva River, then to the Ospia riverbank, then from Otorten Mountain to Okochakar Hill, and from there back to Vizhai. The people in the group were Igor Dyatlov, Yuri Doroshenko, Lyudmila Dubinina, Yuri Krivonishenko, Alexander Kulivatov, Zinaida Kolomogorova, Rustem Slobodin, Nikolai Thibeaux-Brignol, Semyon Zolotaryov, and Yuri Yudin. On the train, they were singing songs, having fun, and making final preparations for this trip. They had even set a goal for themselves. Smoking was forbidden until this trip was over. In short, like every adventure, their adventure had started fun, but no one realized that this adventure would become a journey of death. On January 25, the team arrived by train at Ivdel, about 340 kilometers north of their starting point. From there, they set off by bus to Vizhai at the first opportunity. At one point, the bus stopped to take a break and said it would continue in 1 hour, but instead of waiting, the team wanted to walk. Walking instead of waiting in this cramped bus was good for them. Then the bus came, picked them up, and took them to Vizhai. They spent the night there. On January 26, the team negotiated with the local people to go by truck from Visay to the 41st settlement area. They spent the night in the 41st district. During this time, team member Yudin started to get sick. Inflammations began to form on his back. Here they met an elderly man named Slava, who helped carry the team's bags with his horse and sledge for 24 kilometers to make their hike easier. The team tried to reach the Ospia River by following the Lozva River. During this time, they found an abandoned house and spent the night there. January 28, Yuri Yudin had to leave the team due to his illness. The team continued along the Lozva River, leaving Yuri Yudin behind. Today, they set up camp for the first time. January 29. It was also Yuri Doroshenko's birthday. He had turned 21. They continued on their way over the Lozva River. On the way, they encountered signs carved into trees belonging to the Mansi. They turned left from the Lozva River and began following the Ospia River. January 30. They continued along the Ospia River. They began to encounter more Mansi signs. Zina was taking notes of these and trying to solve them herself. The team stopped following the Ospia River later in the day. January 31. The weather is getting worse and worse. The team continues on their way following the old Mansi trail. February 1. After the team cleaned their stoves and had some fun, they start their hike. The forested area ends and they continue their hike in a sloping environment. The team's notes end here. The team could only advance 2 kilometers in an environment where visibility had dropped 50 to 100 meters. In this photo they took while trying to set up camp, we can clearly see that the snow depth is quite high. They dig the snow so that the tent they will set up sits on solid ground. This photo you see is their last photo. Dyatlov had set up their tent on Kolatsiaklon Mountain, namely the famous Death Mountain, on an open ridge 300 meters from the summit, at a point with a 30° 90-degree slope. So why did they camp on a sloping and open point instead of camping in the wooded area right next to them? Igor Dyatlov had said he would return on February 12 and send a telegram to the sports club, but no telegram from Igor had arrived. They said a few days' delay was normal, but still no message or telegram had reached them. Upon this, the search and rescue team started a search and rescue operation to find these 9 hikers. On February 26, they found the team's first remains, that is, the place where they made their last camp. When they found the tent, it was completely covered with snow. It was in the area they had set up on February 1. This was there when the teams found the tent with a small cross-like thing right next to the tent in the last photo they took. The incident probably took place on February 1 or 2. The rescue team noticed something. They noticed that instead of the tent's zippered door, it had been cut open from the inside with a knife. Inside, food, coats, shoes, personal belongings were in their proper places. So the hikers had tried to escape from the tent hastily, half-dressed. This had brought the events to an end. The first hikers were found about 1.5 kilometers from the tent, where the frozen bodies of Doroshenko and Krivonishenko were found in the woods. They were wearing only underwear. Shortly after, Igor Dyatlov and Zenaida were found on the way to the tent. Only these 4 hikers could be found in the initial searches. When the date showed March 5, the 5th hiker, Rustam Slobodin, was found. The other 4 hikers were found on May 4, 1959, by a Mansi local who was hunting with his dog by the riverside. Lyudmila was found kneeling, pressing her chest against a rock, while the other hikers were found embracing each other, perhaps to keep warm or perhaps out of fear. One person's chest cavity had completely collapsed. One person had no tongue and eyes. These injuries were severe enough to be experienced in a minimum car accident, but no impact or cuts could be found on their bodies. High levels of radiation were also detected on some of the hikers' bodies. This was a very rare situation to encounter on such a hike. The authorities closed the file by writing hypothermia and natural conditions. For years, countless conspiracy theories were put forward about this incident. One of them was that this was part of a secret military nuclear test. Except for one person who participated in this trip, everyone was a student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute. This school was not an ordinary engineering faculty. It was a place that produced new engineers for the Soviet Union's massive projects. It was an institution that had close ties especially with nuclear technology and military research. So these young people were not ordinary adventurers, but also engineers who could play a role in critical projects of the period. On top of that, rumors emerged that several members of the team had KGB connections. For example, 38-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov. He was the group's most experienced hiker, but had joined the team at the last minute. He was of military background. In fact, he was a World War II veteran. Rumors say that Zolotaryov was included in the team by the KGB to be an observer. Some say he was included in the team just because he was an experienced hiker. But the most discussed and focused theory is that this happened during a military test. The 1950s were a period when the Soviets conducted many nuclear weapons tests. The remote areas of the Ural Mountains were also priceless for these experiments. According to the statements of some witnesses, bright orange spheres were seen on the day the incident occurred. At the same time, information emerged that nuclear tests not in official records were being conducted at that time. This brought the following to mind. The hikers had unwittingly been caught in the middle of a secret experiment. Due to the effects of the explosion, they might have had crushes and even radiation contamination on their bodies. Soviet soldiers who saw this might have tried to eliminate the hikers to hide the incident. These orange spheres seen also led to more fantastic interpretations. Witnesses had declared that they saw unusual lights in the sky at that time. Because of this, some circles said these were UFOs. The hikers had encountered aliens and had fled from their tents in fear and haste. The radiation condition and wounds found on them were attributed to these. Actually, to understand what happened that day, there's no need to delve too much into conspiracy theories, because when more human and nature-based possibilities that trigger each other come together, the picture becomes clear. Because what happened was this: the Dyatlov team had camped in a very steep and unprotected area, despite the blizzard. Most likely they were afraid of losing their route due to the blizzard, but this mistake left them defenseless in the freezing cold of the night. The blizzard filled the tent and its surroundings with fresh snow all night long. The tent's roof became heavy. On top of that, since it was new snow, there was a danger of avalanche, and probably a small but deadly avalanche we call a slab avalanche occurred. Due to this incident, the tent's tarp collapsed. As a result of the collapse, some hikers were injured. Panic started. To get out of the tent urgently, instead of the exit door, they cut the tent from inside with a cutting tool and threw themselves out half naked. This possibility was rejected for years because no avalanche traces could be found. But in recent research, Swiss scientists Alexander Puzerin and Johann Gaum showed with computer simulations that a slab avalanche could occur at the location where the tent was found. Moreover, evidence of such avalanches can disappear within 1 or 2 hours. In short, it was quite natural that the rescue teams did not see any signs of an avalanche when they came to the scene weeks later. In a study conducted in 2011, the slope of the area where the tent was located was calculated to be between 28% and 30%. It revealed that slab avalanches were experienced in the region, so this revealed that this theory was exactly correct. It also showed how the chest cage and skull fractures mentioned in the reports occurred without external impact marks. They were so scared that they couldn't even think of taking their clothes. Their only thought was to move towards the forest. But during this time, the group suddenly scattered due to both the injured and the severe cold. But all of them succumbed to their wounds and hypothermia at some point. The fact that the corpses were found naked is actually not a mystery, as I explained in Lincoln Hall's story. In advanced hypothermia, a condition called paradoxical undressing occurs. The body feels as if it's burning, so it feels the need to take off whatever it has on. The loss of tongue and eyes is nature's work. Bodies that remained under ice for months may have reached this state due to the power of animals or water. You'll say, how will you explain the radiation? Let me explain immediately. As I mentioned, except for Zolotaryov, everyone in this group was a student at the Ural Polytechnic Institute. All of these students were engineering students, and some of them even worked in laboratories, so radiation might have penetrated these students' clothes during experiments. As for the lights, yes, they could have originated from military tests or natural events. But when we take a general look, this tragedy was a nature-based event that progressed in a chain. A tent set up in the wrong place, a deadly snowslide, decisions made in panic, severe cold, blizzard, and a tragedy caused by hypothermia. When all of them come together, this mystery that is still talked about today emerges. In short, the Dyatlov Pass incident was neither a military operation nor an alien attack. It was a tent set up in the wrong place, wrong decisions made, and the mercilessness of nature. Of course, what happened there that night was very eerie and frightening. But at the same time, it shows us this: nature was mankind's greatest test. That's all from me for this week. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked it, you can follow me and like the video. Take care of yourselves. Until the next video, goodbye.